Hi, I am Brandy Davis, the HMS Training Manager with Austin Echo. This training video will cover what the housing inventory count is, what the longitudinal system analysis is, and what system performance measures are, and what those three things entail. What is the LSA, or longitudinal system analysis? Every year, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, submits an annual homeless assessment report, AHAR, to the United States Congress. The AHAR is a national level report that provides information about homeless service providers, people and households experiencing homelessness, and various characteristics of that population. It informs strategic planning for federal, state, and local initiatives designed to prevent and end homelessness. The AHAR research team collects, reviews, and analyzes HMIS data that continuums of care report to HUD during the LSA. The team supports COCs throughout the data collection and cleaning process to review the data and resolve any data quality flags. Once the data collection and cleaning process is closed, the research team analyzes the data and prepares the annual reports, which have historically been published each summer and fall, and provide an overview of homelessness during the previous year. What does the LSA include? For those people and households served by continuum projects during the fiscal year, the LSA includes demographic characteristics like age, race, gender, and veteran status, length of time homeless and patterns of system use, information specific to populations whose needs and/or eligibility for services may differ from the broader homeless population, such as veterans and people and households experiencing chronic homelessness, housing outcomes for those who exit the homeless services system. As far as who should participate in submitting the LSA, all COCs are encouraged to participate in submitting the LSA through the COC or HMIS leads. So what exactly does the LSA reporting process look like? So the timeline for the LSA is typically during the winter months, starting in November and ending around late February. First, the HMIS team will export data from HMIS and upload it into the HUD HCX system for review. Then the data will come back with warning and error flags on HMIS data quality. The HMIS team will fix warnings and errors in the HMIS system that do not need the assistance of providers to fix. And then the HMIS team will reach out to agency admins regarding their data quality by providing reports or listing clients whose data needs fixing, and the kinds of data entry errors that we sometimes see are head of households errors, overlapping enrollments, client information errors, things like that. The HMIS team will then resubmit their data. It will be reviewed by a HUD representative, and errors, warnings that still exist will be returned. Lastly, the submission data correction cycle will continue until the LSA is accepted by the HUD representative. So why is the LSA important? Why do we need to do this? So the AHAR at Congress is the only source of data that is available annually on the extent and nature of homelessness nationwide. The LSA also provides federal local policymakers with a deeper understanding of who is homeless and how homelessness changes over time. And HUD may consider participation in the LSA submission process as a scoring factor in the application for funding that COCs submit to HUD each year. What is the housing inventory count? The housing inventory count measures the capacity of the system to house people experiencing homelessness, including emergency shelter, transitional housing, and all permanent housing projects like rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. It is captured on the same night as the point-in-time count. There are two main categories, each with a different purpose and role: sheltered and permanent housing. What is the point-in-time count? The point-in-time count is a count of sheltered and unsheltered people experiencing homelessness on a single night in January. HUD requires that continuums of care conduct an annual count of people experiencing homelessness who are sheltered in emergency shelter, transitional housing, and safe havens on a single night. Point-in-time counts are important because they establish the dimensions of the problem of homelessness and help policymakers and program administrators track progress towards the goals of ending homelessness. Collecting data on homelessness and tracking progress can inform public opinion, increase public awareness, and attract resources that will lead to the eradication of the problem. HUD uses information from the local point-in-time counts, among other data sources, in the congressionally mandated annual homeless assessment report to Congress. This report is meant to inform Congress about the number of people experiencing homelessness in the U.S. and the effectiveness of HUD's programs and policies in decreasing those numbers. On the local level, point-in-time counts help communities plan services and programs to appropriately address local needs. measure progress in decreasing homelessness, and identify strengths and gaps in a community's current homelessness assistance program. Who is counted in the HIC? Beds and units included on the HIC are considered part of the COC homeless assistance system. Beds and units in the HIC must be dedicated to serving homeless persons or for permanent housing projects dedicated for persons who are homeless and in street. For the purpose of the HIC, a project with dedicated beds units is one where A, the primary intent of the project is to serve homeless persons, B, the project verifies homeless status as part of its eligibility determination, and C, the actual project clients are predominantly homeless or for permanent housing or homeless and in street. What project types are included in the HIC? The project types included in the HIC, as identified in the most recently published HMIS data standards, are emergency shelter, transitional housing, safe haven, permanent housing, so permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, or other permanent housing, which combines two project types from the HMIS data standards. So permanent housing, housing with services, or permanent housing, housing only. Voucher-based projects are included in the HIC and will need to work with the HMIS department to translate the number of units and vouchers distributed into a bed count. Why is the HIC important? The housing inventory count allows you to look at three different things: utilization, gaps, and context to understand trends. For utilization, to effectively end and prevent homelessness across the system, it is important to look at utilization across all projects on the night of the point in time count, as well as over time to see where projects and beds are underutilized and overutilized. Individual projects can also do this to determine how they can increase their utilization rates and serve more people with the same number of resources. Gaps to help understand why people who experience unsheltered homelessness on the night of the point in time count do not access shelter. The point in time count survey asks about barriers to shelter entry. And trends, sometimes an increase or decrease in homelessness is due to an increase or decrease in shelter or transitional housing. What is the bed and unit inventory? The bed inventory is the total number of beds available for occupancy on the night of the inventory count. The beds are basically equivalent to the number of people a project can serve at one time. For all project types other than rapid rehousing, COCs must include all of the dedicated homeless beds and units available for homeless persons on the date of the inventory count. For inventory that was active on the night of the PIT count, COCs should report the actual number of beds available for occupancy on that night in their HIC, even if it differs from the number projected in grant applications or calculated through some other approach to determining typical capacity. What is the unit inventory? The unit inventory is the total number of units available for occupancy on the night of the inventory count. Projects that do not have a fixed number of units may record the bed inventory, the number of residential facilities operated by the program, or the number of rooms used for overnight accommodation. What are the bed types? The three different bed types are households without children, beds and units typically serving households with adults only. This includes households composed of unaccompanied adults, including unaccompanied youth ages 18 through 24, and multiple adults, including households with multiple youth ages 18 to 24. Households with at least one adult and one child, beds and units typically serving households with at least one adult, including youth ages 18 to 24, and one child. And lastly, households with only children, beds and units typically serving households composed exclusively of persons under the age of 18, including one-child households, multi-child households, or other household configurations composed only of children. What are systems performance measures? When the McKinney-Vento Homelessness Assistance Act passed, it focused on viewing the local homeless response as a coordinated system rather than programs operating independently in a community. Out of this came system performance measures, which establishes a set of criteria for HUD to use in awarding COC funding. The purpose is to measure the progress in meeting the needs of people experiencing homelessness in the community. To facilitate this perspective, the Act now requires communities to measure their performance as a coordinated system, in addition to analyzing performance by specific projects or project types. How is data quality, timeliness, and accuracy crucial? Timely data is important because the data changes over time, and it's crucial that the most accurate data is pulled into reports. Timeliness of data reduces the time between data collection and data entry, increasing accuracy and completeness. For our community, the expectation is that all data is entered within 5 business days of the client interaction. The LSA looks at trends of housing project bed utilization, unsheltered persons, and persons served in the community over a span of 3 years, which makes data quality crucial to the process. These reports are analyzing quantitative data in HMIS, and we use this data to inform decisions surrounding future service provisions for clients served. So this data definitely impacts people experiencing homelessness in our community. These reports also highlight the work that is already being accomplished in the community. Essentially, if data isn't being put into HMIS, for example, housing move-in dates, it's basically like that move-in didn't happen according to HUD. So it's really important that we track the work that's being done in our community within HMIS. Additionally, communities that complete the LSA receive points in the NOFO, which can positively impact funding for the community. If you have any questions around the LSA, HIC, or system performance measures, please feel free to reach out to our team through our HMIS help desk. And in general, if you have any HMIS questions, you can reach our team through that help desk.